very tense situation that I think is causing a lot of us anxiety, worrying about our health, our loved ones, whether we can get toilet paper. Oh my goodness, what a crisis. So what we're going to do here is work through our creative side and hopefully have a pleasant time, put our cares and worries to one side. And what I'm planning to do today is to work with you with your supplies. Hopefully you have them now ready to start, whatever you've chosen. Any media will work. It'd help if you had a little facility with it, but if you don't, that's perfectly okay. Children, do the best you can. Amateurs, learn. People who are experienced, just have some fun doing something creative. So here it is, spring, and outside our crocuses are blooming. I have to say the rabbits and the chipmunks have been pretty hard on my crocuses, but I did manage to find a couple. Here is one that I rescued this evening around 4 o'clock. It's closed up a little bit. We can see not open as much as it might be, but it gives us an example to work from. And then I thought, to give us some more ideas about what crocuses look like, I went online and found this beautiful photograph of crocuses, and happily they're the same color as my crocus, so we'll be working with both this image and the real crocus to see what we're going to do. Now I'm going to try to go slowly enough so that you can actually work with me. Sort of like baking a cake, all right? We're going to get the recipe, and we're going to follow the directions, and it's going to be pretty much step by step, and hopefully with enough explanation that you'll be able to follow. Now, my plan here is to demonstrate with a variety of materials. I love crayons. They were my foundation media when I was a child. I love coloring books and crayons. And I'm going to try to show you a new way to use crayons. Colored pencils, I've done a lot of artwork in colored pencils, done some of my husband's book covers with colored pencils. It's another wonderful media, so we'll be experimenting with that. Also, watercolor is a pretty standard media. Here are my watercolors that I've used over the years, my palette. I'm not going to get into oils, but you can use oils if you want, or acrylics, or pastel. I think if I work with 3 media here, that will probably be sufficient. So the first thing to do in trying to do artwork is, at least where you're doing realistic images, and even when you're working abstractly, you're trying to get the essence of a subject, the first thing to do is what I would call observation. It's basically, you've got to look at it. You have to examine it. You have to be familiar with what you're trying to draw. So let's take a look at this crocus, and I see it's kind of dripping on the table. I'm not terribly happy with that, but you know what? I'll keep it in this jar. Isn't this an adorable little jar? This is from my grandmother, probably dates to about 1880, and it was a toothpick holder, because polite people were allowed to pick their teeth in public, which is kind of now fairly gross. But anyway, that's where you kept the toothpicks. So when we get this crocus out of the water to look at it, sometimes I like to count the petals and see how many petals there actually are in the blossom. So I see 3 on the outside, and then I see 3 more clustered inside, and inside of that there is a beautiful little orange, this is the part of the bloom. The petals protect the parts of the flower, but here it is, it's orange, like little orange. And there are 3 of them again, so 3 outer petals, 3 inner petals, and 3 parts that will have the nectar and the pollen, and will be the reproductive part of the crocus. And they, to my mind, I wish I could focus down on here, but that's a little hard to do. They look like little upside down brushes, like dust whisks. So I've get my crocus coming back together again. And I think you're familiar, interesting, three leaves. Isn't that interesting? So this comes in threes. A lot of our flowers comes in petals of 3 or 6. I don't know of any that are asymmetrical. That would be like 1, 5, 7. They always seem to have a symmetry about them, which I think is a beautiful part of most flowers. And you can always tell crocus flowers because there's a white line down the middle. That's very distinctive for crocus. So we've analyzed what we're doing here, and I'm going to start with the simplest tool of all, which is a pencil. It's a very simple tool. I'm just going to put this over that white paper here. So I'm going to be trying in the direction that I'm working. I can't really work upside down. So actually, maybe what I could do is I'll try turning around like this, okay? So the first thing to do is to see the shape of that petal. And it's sort of like a little spoon. It flares at the top, comes to a little bit, not a sharp point, but it does come to a kind of a rounded point, and then it tapers down. So if we think about that petal, all right, and I'm hoping you're going to be looking at either a crocus or at my drawings of the crocus. And that petal seems to have that general shape, right? That's the first step, is to get one of those petals in there. And by the way, if you can't follow along with this, you can always go to Milton Access TV on demand, look down under Art and Life, and then say, look for how to draw a crocus, because that's our topic for today. So now I'm going to draw another petal, and this petal, instead of being right in front of me, is off to one side. So it's going to appear differently. This is the hardest one to draw. It's going to have sort of a scoop shape, and I'm going to have to turn this way because I can't really do this so I'm looking at it, and it goes up here, and then it disappears down on the other side, and the scoop kind of comes like that. All right, so this one has that sort of a shape. Now I'm going to draw the one on the other side. This is number 3, and this one is coming out of here. It's got a little bit of a wibble wobble on it, and then it has a nice scoop, and it comes back down, and I can actually see a little bit of the reverse side. So that's my very basic crocus. That's when I'm looking at it this way. I can't see the insides. It's not very open. Now let's add a couple of leaves around it, and they come up 3 spears, tall up, very narrow, back down. I'm going to put another one over here, straight up, back down. And I think I'll pretend that the third one, they are all coming out of the same sheath here. So I've actually made a mistake there, but we're going to ignore our mistakes. You know what? You can ignore your mistakes. Perfectly okay. However it comes out, it's going to be just fine. All right, so I've made a mistake. We're forgetting all about that. All right, so I'm going to come up with another one here. I think in terms of my design, it's beginning to look like a fan. So since I've already made that basic error about where these come out, I think I'm going to make another one over there. All right, and then let's indicate with a faint line the white space in the middle. Keep that line very faint, all right? It's not an outline, it's not the outside, so let's just make that faint. And there's another characteristic. Within the petals of the leaves, there are also some very faint curving lines. So let's add, using a faint pencil, let's add a few of those lines coming down this way. There's the one in the center. Now they're going to billow out here, coming out and out, following the curve, coming down here, keeping it very faint, not very dramatic. And I think that's about what we're going to do for this drawing. Now, if you're determined to be realistic and you must have ground it's popping out of, I personally would leave this drawing alone. I would say, that's my drawing. I'm not going to do anything more with it. But if you must, because of how type of person you are, draw some soil here. For goodness sakes, don't make it a straight line, make it a wavy line. But I think that would spoil my drawing. So I'm going to, now, we're assign it down here, all right? And always a date, so we're up to March 16, 2020, tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day. So we should be doing clovers, but we're not, we're doing crocus. All right, so that's how we would do it if we were just doing a simple pencil drawing. Now, let's take a look at something a little more difficult, and we've analyzed the crocus. We know now 6 outer petals, 6 inner petals, and then the little brush forms inside. So now I'm going to switch over to crayons, and let's see what would happen using this photo as a starting point. What would happen if we used crayons? And I think I'm going to center on this crocus over here so that it's a little bit different. I'm going to try to prop it up so that you can see and I can see. There we go. All right, I'm going to have to be peeking. Oh, I'm going to have to go back a little bit. All right. Okay, hope you can see it. All right, I'll get this one out of the way. We don't need the water. Put that over there. So now we're into crayons. Now, I don't want anybody erasing. Kids, you're not going to get out your eraser, all right? But we're going to try to give ourselves some kind of guidelines about where we're going with the crayons. And by the way, you can work on with crayons any kind of a pad. It's always nice to work on better paper. Better paper has a better grip. It lasts longer. Paper doesn't have acid in it anymore, so we don't need to worry about acid, which used to turn everything yellow and kind of horrible. I know what we'll do. We'll prop this up with this. Oh boy, that's charming. Oh, perfect. Great. Okay, now, so keeping in mind how we drew the crocus before, let's see if we can interpret this crocus. And we're going to start with the things that are closest to you. That's where you want to begin. What is closest to you? Then you work back in layers. So foreground, middle ground, background. Start in front. Okay, let's take this petal, is the foremost petal, and it's doing something very interesting. It's curling over toward you like this. It's going like that. So that this shape that we're looking at here is curling towards us. And that's where I'm going to begin. I'm going to make this really big, all right? It's going to be a giant crocus, the biggest crocus that ever lived, all right? So here's that leaf that's coming forward here. And it comes down, and it comes down into the base of the crocus, sort of like that. Now I'm going to do the 2 side petals. This one, let's do this one first. It flares off to the side. It goes higher. You see that line there, that flat line goes higher. So it's going to come in over here. Got a nice big swoop to it. It comes in here, and then it kind of comes down here. We're leaving it vague because there's another petal that comes in front of it. And this is another spoon-shaped petal. It goes up and comes around. And it has this interesting little part where it curves around. So we want to get that in. Now let's take on this petal, and we're going to pretend that we can see the whole petal. So it's going to come up here. It's going to go this way. And again, it has that spoon shape, goes back, and it has a part that comes down here. Now we have another petal coming in. Here we're going to work with this petal. Up, see the spoon shape? And then again, it comes forward. So it starts about here, goes up, has that spoon shape, and kind of comes back. Now we're doing it with the easiest petal of all, and that's the one that's in back. It just goes up and down. It's a simple spoon. So here we've got, this is going to give us our petal. Here's the one that's tipping forward. Here's the one on the side, two spoons, then another spoon, and then the spoon in back. And in here, there's that little brush, all right? And I'm just going to kind of give a little sketch for the brush. Okay, now it has a white sheath around it, very interesting. That goes there. And then we're going to see a few leaves coming off here, green leaves, kind of like that. All right, maybe a couple behind. All right, so we've got a general sketch about where we're going to go with our crayons. Okay, now crayons, we're going to look for some appropriate colors. Okay, and it doesn't matter if they're not sharp, they don't have to be sharp, they can be broken. Here's a nice pink. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get out. Here's another good pink. What do we need? A violet, some kind of a violet. Oh boy, I hope there's a violet in here. Oh my goodness. I think this is a violet. Let's just see what this one is. This is plum. Wow, plum. That ought to do it. We don't want any red. I think that's over the top. Here's another kind of a pinky color. Now the colors don't have to match exactly. What's the name of this one? Fuchsia. Good. Okay. So we've picked some nice, let's pick a nice white, pinkish white. This one is called lavender? I don't know. Now my advice here is to start with the light colors first and go darker. I'm always saying that. Start forward, go back, start light, go dark. In general, that's the best way to go. So we look and see where the highlights are. The highlights is where the sun is hitting the flower. So there's a highlight here and here and here. High, light. High, meaning bright, light, coming. So we're going to go in here, and this color is hardly showing up at all. But I am really pressing down very, very hard with that crayon. And you know how your teachers in school always used to scold you? Or maybe they didn't scold you. But when I went to grade school, if you broke a crayon, you were really in trouble. Oh my goodness, you broke a crayon. And that had to do with when I was growing up. Crayons were treasured. We didn't have a lot of them. We didn't have a lot of art supplies. And we were very happy to have crayons. And so we didn't want to break them. Now everybody thinks crayons are just throwaway things, but they're not. They're a wonderful medium to work with. All right, now I'm going to go to the next color and blend in, pressing down hard, very hard, right next to my highlight. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but this is my next color. And I hope you can see how much pressure I am putting on the crayon. I'm going to have to peel off the paper because we're not getting past the point here. Okay, so we're pressing down hard, hard, lots of pressure. And I think we're going to put some of that back in here too. All right. Not worrying too much, kids, about whether we're staying inside the lines. All right, you don't have to worry about being inside the lines. Okay, my arm's actually beginning to ache. I'm putting so much pressure on this. Now we're going to go to the next color. Oh, wonderful. Okay, we're getting good range of color here. All right, right over the top. All right, and this is going next to that last color. All right, over here, coming down in here. Okay. I'm going to hold it up in a minute here so you can see what's going on. All right, we're already getting a really, it's going to turn out to be a pink crocus. But that's okay. no harm in having pink crocus. All right, and actually we may get it to look a little bit more purple. All right, now the big question is, am I going to go for this red, the fuchsia? I think I'm going to go to the plum. And this, yes, I thought so. This is going to be pretty dramatic change here. But I think it's, now the dark part inside, we're really going to bear down in here, inside our spoon shapes. All right, we're going to really put some effort into that, particularly over here. I'm going to come in down in here. Okay. And then certainly down in here. Right. Now I'm kind of blending out here a little bit. Not pressing so heavily here. I want this to be a little lighter. Okay, so it's coming along. Now I think the next step, I'm a little nervous about this red. No, I think the red's going to work. I tried it out over here in the corner. So now I'm going to come in with, oh yes, this is the perfect color. Oh my goodness. Fantastic. Perfect color. So I'm going outside here with that color, pressing down, still pressing down hard, pressing down. Okay, I'm going to turn it upside down so you can get a better idea of what I'm doing here. All right, I'm going over that purple, pressing as hard as I can. All right, you want to leave a space for our little yellow part. All right, let's go round and round. And by the way, when you're coloring with a crayon, you're not just filling in. You're going with the shape of the flower. It's not just like, oh, I got to fill this in. No, 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 no. All right, now we're ready for, let's put a little more dark over here. And this is what I really love about crayons. You realize now I've been pressing down very hard all the way around. Let's put some of this down in here. Okay, now we can go back to one of the lighter colors and we can just really, really, really press down. Press, 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 press. Hard, 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 hard. Right over the top of the other colors. Right over. Okay. All right. Okay, and we could continue on this way, but I think we'll stop there. And now we've got to get our little orangey gold part in here. And so again, we're going to start light with the yellow, and then we're going to put the orange over the top. Okay, that takes care of that. We're going to get this done hopefully within our time limit. Now, green leaves. Get the spears of those green leaves in here. Coming up. Need that white. Another leaf here, another shape here. All right, there's our light color. Now let's go for a dark green. We're going to go for a really good blue-green here. All right. Okay, and just kind of give a little bit more definition, particularly down, darker, down at the base here. Coming up. Okay. All right, I think we're done. There it is in crayon. Here it is in pencil. Now, in the next segment, what I'm going to do is we're going to do it in watercolor. So I hope you can practice. Get a crocus. If you can find a real crocus, that would be even better than working from a photo image. But if you can't, that'll be all right too. If you wanted to, on this one, you could come in here. Let me do one more thing with this before we close out this session. which I think we need to do. You could come in here with a really dark color if you wanted to really make this more dramatic, you know. Not maybe a whole background, but just give it some more drama. Okay, so, yeah, I like that. A little more dramatic. And you could continue to play with this over and over again. Okay, so that's how you can use crayons and pencil. And if you have this drawing and you want to use your colored pencils or magic markers on it, you could do that. That would be another way of expanding this idea. Okay, I hope you had a good time. And in the next session, I'm going to do it with watercolor. And I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Thank you very much. Beth Neville. Bye-bye.